Okay, Psychosis. Once again, my first foray to this particular haunt, and had the benefit of hearing some past experiences, which somewhat, I guess, you know, uh, colors my review in the sense that I understand it was a much more favorable experience in prior years. However, reviewing as a standalone haunt for me, I think I think the introduction, you know, in terms of taking on a topical subject as Ebola and having a quarantine area, um, not very original, and definitely stretched the experience a lot more than it needed to be. And in fact, being put in cages individually. Never mind the fact that I couldn't get mine open at the end, but the fact is that was valuable real estate that was, I think, squandered just with metal cages that took up far too much space. And then having an introduction by a doctor going over various, vaccines. Same thing. That was a one joke gag that went on way too long. But once you got past those, unfortunately, it was the introduction. That was probably about almost, I don't know, 8, 9 minutes. Once you got past that, I think the several rooms were creative. I think the scene with the Exorcist homage was incredibly well done. I think the girl coming out of the television was incredibly well done. I think the maze itself, I think once is, okay, twice is a little repetitive, and by the third, time going back in, it really wore out its welcome. And I think at least though, having the wax portion at the end and a real live Mike Myers sort of was a good salvaging point. So overall, to me, that raised it above, I think, the 3 chainsaws I was going to give. I conclude with 3.5. Again, maybe because I don't have the prior year's phenomenal experience behind me, I'll look at it truly as a standalone, but 3.5 chainsaws for me.
All right. All right, return visit to one of our perennial visits. In fact, one of the top haunts of 2013 for us, Psychosis out in Elgin. What'd you think?
Well, Psychosis was one of my all-time favorites last year. I would say it probably was. There's only one other one that was right up there with it, but I really, really loved it, and I loved it in the past. Every year I've gone to Psychosis, I've loved it. This year, of course, I was all excited and really looking forward to this haunt, and as being one of my favorites. And this year, it was a little different location, which I understand. I know new location, things kind of change up a little bit. Some of the things that I loved the best about it were actually still in there, so that is a big plus. Plus, there was one added scene, which I don't want to do a spoiler, but a big surprise, really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And, but then parts of it are kind of, not exactly what we've seen in the past. Different theme. It just wasn't quite what it used to be. So for this year, even though I know this has been a 5 chainsaw, it's been top for me. This year I'm probably going to give it a 4. And some of the chainsaws, because some of the things from the past, from last year, were in there that I really loved. And then there was that new scene in there that I thought was really well done. And I have to say that a lot of the actors in there's a couple of really good scenes with the actors. The one scene that I'm talking about, she was really good. And then there's another, like an Exorcist scene, and the girl was shaking on the bed. That was great. So I have to, give a shout out to that. But like I said, this time around, 4 chainsaws for me.
Okay.
Hopefully, I know it's new and a new place and everything, but hopefully they'll build on that and it'll be back to being a 5 chainsaw, one of my tops again next year. Because I will go back.
Okay. All right. So, return visit to Psychosis for you. Was 2014 a match of 2013? I know it was one of your top haunts for 2013.
It was actually my favorite haunt of 2013, and it took a disappointing step in the wrong direction this time around. Many changes were made, not for the better. There's an area where you have to crawl on the ground, which is always a turnoff for me. You get put in a cage, which is a waste of time, to the haunt. And it says, they need to bring back the old magic of Psychosis. And they start you off with a CDC, theme, but then when you get in, it changes it and it doesn't make any sense anymore.
So if you had to give a chainsaw rating on this one.
3.5.
Okay. Psychosis. First, let me just say that Psychosis was in a new location this year. I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack because I know it's difficult to just up and move on short notice where you have to rebuild a haunt in a very short period of time. I understand that. That being said, I will say that sometimes when you have a good thing, you should just keep that good thing going in a certain way. A couple of things that really disappointed me this time around for Psychosis, the introductory scenes were just, for lack of a better word, very uninteresting. They seemed to waste a lot of time. There was an area where we were put in cages, and it was supposed to be sort of some sort of quarantine zone, something like that. But really, it amounted to some guy telling bad jokes and stretching it out for no reason at all. There was no scares in there. There was nothing in there. It was bad comedy, not the best acting, overly long. We were in these cages, at least, I would say the whole scene, it took 3 or 4 minutes altogether. Just wasted time and wasted space. And following that, there was a doctor's office, again with the same theme of some sort of viral infection and things like that, but it seemed more like they were explaining the rules to us again, which we had explained to us before we got in the haunt. Personally, my opinion is a waste of time and waste of space with that. But after that, the haunt did redeem itself in certain ways. The Wax Museum was excellent as it was last year. Great, I'm glad they kept that. The half maze, good, but we went through it 3 times, portions of it 3 times. That may be the new place. They're trying to stretch things out. I understand that, but I think 3 times is a bit of overkill. The room, which Laura didn't want to spoil, I'll spoil, so spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Oh,
Samara coming out of the television. Great.
that was
the girl
fantastic.
was great.
I love that.
The effect was great.
It
And
was
then
something new.
after she was out and crawled after you, when you walked around the outside and you left the room, there was a little hole in the wall, and she peeked through and said, 7 days. That was good.
Fantastic.
That was really, really good.
That was.
And
that
the
made
Exorcist
haunt.
girl. The Exorcist girl was outstanding. I mean, she really raised the bar. Before we got into those 2 scenes, this haunt was not one of my favorites, and that started picking it up. Okay, so it went kind of like this, and then it went back up. Again, a lot of space that seemed unfinished, and again, that's probably because of the move. There were a few good scenes in there. Some things were just okay. So I'm just going to cut it right down the middle. And again, I will cut them a little bit of slack because of this new location. So I'm going to give it a 3 this time. 3 out of 5 this time around. There's room for growth there for sure.